What's up, my family? Listen, first-time listener, or you've been here the whole damn time. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, giddy up, let's go, no notes.
That's my baby. That's my baby.
We're going at it at 110%.
I just want 5 minutes of happiness, please. Just give me 5 minutes.
And they scored. They did it.
What
the hell was that? Oh, yeah.
What the f*** are you talking about?
Garry Cobb with you here, and we're going to be talking Eagles. We're going to get into it. Of course, this is our weekly show. G Cobb with you, and we're talking about another W. Wasn't pretty, but the Eagles found a way to come out with the victory, and really, ultimately, that's really all that matters. I mean, who knows? If they came out with an ugly win in the Super Bowl, we would have taken that over a really a talented and exciting loss. Exciting loss does not get it doesn't do you any good. So anyway, we're going to talk about a lot of things about the win, and we're going to get a chance to talk, about a lot of things that are going on with the team. Some good, some bad. They didn't play their best football now, but we're going to get a chance, and we're going to talk to Clarke. I'd like to introduce Kenny. Kenny and I played together for the Eagles. Kenny plays the nose tackle position. And, man, Kenny, you got in, 14 years you played in the NFL? And, of course, he played for Dick Vermeil and also, of course, Swamp Fox, Marion Campbell played for him. And then he went and played a couple years with the Seattle and played with the Vikings, but 14 years in the NFL after a career at Syracuse University. And I'd like to welcome Ken Clarke to the game. We got Kenneth Clarke. How you doing, Kenny?
Good. Gary, how you doing?
Good. So I'm just telling everybody that we're going to get into some things talking about this team and where they're at now and where they've got to go. And I definitely want to talk to you during this time about some of their young defensive tackles who've been playing very well for the start of the season. But they were able to beat the Vikings because they got their running game going, and the offense really was able to get going and really dominate the game, and they got a win over the Vikings. Now, how important is that when you are winning the battle, whether it's offensive side or defensive side, where you're dominating the other team up front? How good is that? I mean, how important is it? And, of course, the Eagles, that's the reason they won. Talk to us about that some.
I mean, that's very important. You get the running game going. The one thing I noticed about the game was the Eagles won the time of possession. They held the ball almost 40 minutes in the game. And they ran the ball very well. When their backs got 175 yards rushing, if you can do that, I mean, you wear the defense out on the other side, and the Eagles were able to do that.
That's right. Now, when that is happening, now how do you feel as a defensive? How does a defensive, either nose, a defensive tackle, the guys inside, and just a defensive front? How does that feel? Of course, I think I had Dickerson had a big game. I think I was playing against Dickerson. He had some big games. But anyway, talk to the people about what that feels like, and then I'll share some as well.
Well, it doesn't feel good. I mean, the problem, defense, you want to be 3 and out. You want to get off the field. And when somebody's ball controlling you and picking up 4 and 5 yards every rush, that's not good. It's the same as a quarterback going back out there and holding the ball for 10 seconds and they're throwing, you can't get to them. You got to stop the run. You got to rush the passer. So it's very discouraging for a defensive lineman. So it makes you want to go back to the drawing board and see what you're doing wrong. And, the Eagles offensive line, they did a good job of getting a lot of push against the Vikings, and that's how they were able to control the ball.
And really, talking about the Eagles' defensive line, offensive line right now, and the the defensive line for the Vikings, but really the Eagles really dominated the up front, really on both sides of the ball, because they really didn't let the Vikings run the ball very much. In fact, in both of the Eagles games, the defensive line played well, and I think really they've probably been playing better than the offensive line. But the Eagles' offensive line kicked into gear, and after they got things rolling, they were running these these zone plays, whereas zone left, zone right, where they just fire out and move their guys. And DeAndre Swift was doing an outstanding job of just going wherever the hole will open up. I mean, there were times when vision-wise, man, he just sees it all, because he would take it back, way back over the backside, and he'd see the hole. Sure as day, he'd go back there. That hole was wide open, be 10 yards there. And sometimes he would take the direction where he was going. He would hit the hole, and boom, before you know it, he was north and south, and just doing a great job. And they really got the Vikings once they really started. They had one play that was a 16-play drive they had against the Vikings, and they just ground them up. And while they were doing that, they had some opportunities with some big plays, throwing the ball downfield, like they had in fact, Devontae Smith caught a couple of deep passes to go along with that, with the running game. But, this team, though, as good as they ran the ball and everything, just seems like, I don't know if you feel the same way, but the offense just took a long time to get in gear, though. How do you feel about that?
Well, I look at it, for me, it's the first couple of games, really the first 4 to 5 games of the season. Timing's off. You're not really for too many negative plays. A run pass on runs with Jalen, too many negative yardage. He was running right into people. A lot of times didn't get back to the line of scrimmage. So I just working on that and getting into the rhythm and back and look at to see what they were doing wrong.
Mm-hmm. It just seems like, during the first week of the season, they ran into Bill Belichick. And, he has a way of doing things and taking away things you like to do. And I know one of the things that he did was he really did a good job of taking away the big play from the Eagles. They weren't really able to connect downfield with big plays. They just seemed to be out of sync. And Brian Flores, who really is almost like a son to Bill Belichick, he was his defensive coordinator for I don't know how many years. He started out there with him, and then eventually became defensive coordinator, and and then eventually he left. But both of those guys in the first 2 weeks of the season, they really threw a wrench into the Eagles' plans, because they will take away what you like to do. So I think that they made it a point. We're taking away the big play, but we're going to make them be patient. They're going to have to grind. They're going to have to pound the ball against us, because we are not giving them the big play. We're not giving the big play to A.J. Brown, first of all, and we're not giving any big plays up to Devontae Smith. Now, it worked for New England pretty much, where they really didn't give up that many big plays. But the Eagles were able to connect some, against the Vikings, but they were really playing against similar defenses, because I'm not going to say I'm going to bet on it, but anyway. But I am very confident that they probably talked. Chances are that Belichick and Flores talked, because they both have to be playing the same team. Belichick plays. And those guys got to be good friends. After all, they coached together for over a decade. So, that's something that if I could, I would love to be able to look into that. But the Eagles eventually they came to the realization they got to pound the ball. Now I think they're going to see that later on in the year, where teams are going to say we're taking away the big play away from Jalen. And I like the fact that Jalen did not force it. He did throw one interception, but for the most part, he did not force it. He would throw the ball out of bounds if there was nothing there, and they didn't end up losing the game because of a few turnovers, and they would have lost the game. But we're going to get into that. Now, DeAndre Swift. I don't know how much you know about DeAndre. He grew up in the Philadelphia area, and he really had the biggest game of his life, 175 yards gaining. Now, what did you think of DeAndre? You saw him run the ball, saw him with his quickness and speed and everything. What did you think of DeAndre? I don't know. I don't know if everything's connected well, but anyway, Swift, had the biggest game of his career. He has tremendous speed, and the great thing I like is he's got great vision. He's able to see a hole and able to get in there and get through it. The thing is, he's not that big, so 28 carries a game is not going to get it. You cannot run him 28 times a game. He had some injury problems in Detroit, and we don't want him to have injury problems here. So they're going to have to do something about that. They cannot give the ball to him 28 times. That's something that cannot happen. So we're going to see what they do about that. But he just had a great game, 28 carries. I think it was $175 or so. That's what he was able to garner. He scored a touchdown. Really seemed like he should have had two, because looked like he was able to get in there. Beg your pardon? I can't hear him real well. But anyway, the thing that it seemed like he got things going, and he could have had two touchdowns, but they didn't give him that. But I mean, this guy sees the field. He really sees the field, and I was really impressed with him. Now, I tell you a guy I wasn't impressed with, though, Schad, man. What's going on with him? They need him to step up. They need him to be a factor in the offense because he's just not having really didn't do much. I think he carried the ball about three times and really didn't do much in the game against the Vikings. It really was all DeAndre Swift, and they cannot let Swift carry the ball 28 times. He's not that big. He's really not a physical runner like that, even though I thought he did a good job of getting north and south with the football and getting as much as he could. But we don't want him to run too much and wound up losing him. I mean, we're really short of two running backs. We got Kenneth Gainwell is down. He suffered an injury. We know that Boston Scott had a concussion the last game, and he's out. So we're down two running backs, and they're pretty much with DeAndre Swift, and they let Schad, who they picked up from Seattle, who's supposed to be a bruiser. He's supposed to be a big physical running back, and we haven't seen much from him. I think 3 carries for 2 yards. And the other guy, 28 carries for $175, and you're going to come out with 3 carries for 2 yards. Hopefully they both can share the ball this next week. But we're getting ready to take a break, and we're going to be back on the other side and keep talking Eagles. Only on the other side, we're going to talk more about the Eagles' defense and how they played against the Vikings. We'll be back with you in a moment.
Royal Billiard and Recreation, proudly celebrating 40 years and our new, bigger showroom.
Twice the size and twice the fun.
More pool tables by Olhausen. More dartboard sets, including custom reclaimed backboards. More bar and kitchen stools that can change a room.
And more bars, including pre-built and custom.
Hot tubs, skee ball, shuffleboard, outdoor,
and fun.
Royal Billiard and Recreation, your ultimate game room store. Now located on Bethlehem Pike in Colmar.
Okay, G Cobb back with you on our Eagles show, and we're going to be, talking. Well, it's G Cobb Live is really the name of the show. So, but we're talking Eagles And like to welcome to the show a former Eagles offensive lineman who played with the Eagles for a good little while. Mike was a first-round draft pick from with the Los Angeles Rams, and he grew up in Canada. And really, I don't know if he's the only number one draft pick, a Canadian who grew up in playing football in Canada that became a number one draft pick. But all I know is he was a number one draft pick. He grew up in Canada, and he was drafted in the first round by the Rams. And he also played with the Eagles and with the Browns. So I'd like to welcome to our show, the G Cobb Live. Like to welcome Mike Schad to the show.
Gary, what's happening, man? Over here.
How you doing, Mike?
I was actually just coming from Canada this weekend, watching my Queens Golden Gales up in Canada, Kingston, Ontario. My nephew actually played.
What'd you say?
40 years after I went there and played.
You said the Queens. What now? What's the name of the team?
Golden Gales. They're a team in Kingston, Ontario, in the Canadian College Football League.
Is that so?
My nephew actually plays their quarterback. He's not starting right now, but 40 years after I went there and played. So I saw a bunch of old guys play, and they thought they could party like they're 22, but they're all 62, and it didn't go well.
Oh, it didn't go well. Okay.
It didn't go well.
Okay. Hey, you did get a chance to see the Birds, hopefully.
Oh, yeah. I watched Thursday night.
What did you think? What did you think when they got things rolling against the Vikings with that ground attack?
Well, 48 runs, 259 yards, man. That's a lot of running. That's old school football.
That's right.
It's one of those things that once it starts to roll downhill, you don't stop the ball. Keep it rolling downhill. And it rolled downhill. And you know what? Why stop? Hey, you got to stop it before you actually call a different play. So, the Eagles, I was a little concerned, because I think the Eagles' offensive line got a little small. We had a big right guard in there last year, and then we came to Cam now.
You're talking about Sayamalo.
Yeah, I mean, Kelsey's big for a center, but not too big. You usually have those 325, 330-pound guards beside him. He's the brains of the operation, making the calls, and the big men on left and right side are people movers. But Kelsey's the best center I've ever seen. I've never seen a man being able to pull out in the open field from the center position, being so far up on the ball, pulling around and getting to the outside perimeter. That's just unheard of.
Yeah, it is amazing the way he is able to do that.
But I was impressed, and it keeps on working. It's a funny thing. I always thought to myself, in this age of throwing the ball, that you should always have a play action pass to every run and play you got. All right. So I would like to see, and I see it in high school players, I see it in college teams. I would like to see every run and play that the Eagles have, they can match that up with a play action pass.
Okay.
Now, run the ball like that, run pass the ball.
But see, the thing is, the Eagles, though, the Eagles are an RPO offense. Okay. Run pass option. Okay. So they like to run where, Jalen is a part of that. Meaning he puts the ball into the stomach of the running back. Now he can pull it out of there and run himself and go, if it's there. But then he also has an option they'll have in there where they'll have the pass option as well. So at times he has those options, and it seems like they've done a good job of taking part of that away. That's what Belichick did. That's what Brian Flores did.
And I hear what you're saying, but keep in mind, when you run that run-pass option as an offensive line, you can't go downfield. You hit the man across from you, engage him, and you got to stop.
That's right.
You got guys on the left-hand side with Malata and Dickinson. You got two big people movers out there. So you tell me
very big. Yeah.
You can't go downfield. So you're taking away, I can now line up and drive my man 3, 4, 5 yards down the line of scrimmage. You can't do that in the RPO. But in play action pass, you can go ahead and fake that dive play or whatever you're running, and you can come up and throw the ball.
That's right. Now, it just seemed like in the first two games, you had Belichick in one game, Brian Flores in another, one of the things they did is I think they went with a dime because they were willing to give some to those runs up the middle, but they weren't going to let
the big play.
They weren't going to give up the big play, either the big play on the run where Jalen takes off for 20 yards, 30 yards. No, they said you're going to have to get it inside where you got everything cluttered, and if you stay with it, you're going to be able to get yardage, but it's not going to come as fast as A.J. Brown getting deep on us.
Yeah, nothing happens that fast.
Those big plays. So I think that's what they went into it, and it seemed like the Eagles became frustrated early in the game in both of those games because the offense really wasn't.
If they line up and dime, they're taking a guy out of the box, and
that's right.
Goes down to simple math. You got the dime defense, then all of a sudden you got one less guy in the box, one guy less in there.
Well, sometimes they would have that guy walk up in the box, but he's the DB. He's not a
linebacker. You're subbing a linebacker in. For
you got an advantage,
and that's really not a run stopper.
That's right.
So you got boils down. You got to take what they're giving you, and if they're giving you that extra guy out of the box, you're going to run the ball, and it becomes a part, I think, as a coach to figure out when they're doing it, when they're not doing it, and get your right personnel in there and make the right play and call the ball. Or, you start looking at audibles. They're playing dime, you're going to run the play. If they're bringing the guy in the box, then you turn around and you audible out of it,
Now, I want to give everybody listening, I want to ask you, the Eagles can't continue to win like this? Agree or disagree? Now, I'll tell you this. If they keep playing like this, they're not going to win. I don't think they're going to beat Tampa Bay if they don't play better. I'll tell you that right now. Because Tampa Bay,
you're right.
They got some good players. They got those two wideouts. They're two quality wideouts. The one kid is from Penn State, and then you got what's his name? The big number 13, Big Mike. Yeah, I forget his name right offhand. But anyway, I see him, big number 13. And, they got two good wide receivers. You got Baker as the quarterback. And he's been playing well, Mike Evans, that's who it is. It's Mike Evans.
Yeah.
But, they got a talented group. But the Eagles have got to play better, man. They got to step up.
In at the beginning of that Minnesota game, Minnesota made a lot of mistakes. If they don't make those mistakes, that's Minnesota losing the game. That ain't the Eagles beating them.
I think so.
If Minnesota doesn't make those kind of mistakes, that may be worth 7 points. It's a different game.
Yeah, now Kenny, the game against the Vikings, where you got the defensive line, they were doing a great job of rushing the passer. But the Eagles they're not covering anybody, man. They throw for 300 some yards. The time the guy getting rid of the ball, like snap, boom, getting rid of it, and guys open. How frustrating is that when you're beating your man, but you're not getting a chance to get to the quarterback because he's getting rid of the ball so fast?
Very, very. I mean, that's true. The Vikings did throw the ball for 300 and something yards.
Yeah,
that's frustrating. They got some big plays late in the game. I look at it, the defensive line, the way the secondary is, they're just going to have to get there a lot quicker. And I noticed that you got to, it's always like beat your man quicker.
Yeah.
You got to rush the pass gaps if they run.
Yeah, for some reason, the connection is not.
You're trying to rush.
Yeah, they've got to find a way.
So
where their defensive backs will, in some way, I don't know if you come up, you jam the wide out. And I always like DBs, and really even as a linebacker, you need to move around. You don't need to stay in the same spot all the time where they know what coverage you're in. You want to give them different looks, and you want to tell them, look, we want to give them a man look, even though we're getting ready to play zone. So you corners go over, walk up on your guy, look at him like you're a man, and then at the last second you drop out and we're playing a zone against these guys. you got to play smart football. But rather than do that, these guys, especially when you got young guys in there, and you know how young guy come in there in the huddle and his stuff is, tight. That's the way these guys are playing. I mean, they're not giving different looks. They're just, lining up in what they're in. And I know Mac Jones had a good day against him, and so did Kirk Cousins. He had a great day throwing for nearly, he was about ready to throw for 400 yards against them. And they're getting a good pass rush, but they're just not doing a good job of disguising what coverage they're in, giving people different looks, and playing your guy tighter. They got to do something about that. So, hopefully they're going to work on that and tighten that up. But that was very frustrating to see, a defensive line that was doing a good job. And I'd like to ask you about this, Mike, is the young kids inside. You got Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis. What do you think of those two guys?
I mean, they've got a lot of muscle up front. I mean, and they're showing great promise. They are the future of the interior defensive line of the Philadelphia Eagles. They still got some to learn. The Eagles' defensive line's loaded. I think that one of the things I've seen this year is they've got players in there stacked to play defensive line, and they're deep in depth. I mean, offensive line, I don't know if they're deep. Defensive backs are injured right now. They were short 2 in the game. Now you got another guy hurt. Now you're starting to look at a situation where you got defensive line, and we're getting thin on the secondary.
That's right.
And then that takes away that creativity, and you got to dumb it down a little bit because you got some people in there that haven't been playing, and you can't get as complicated and do the things you talked about. I mean, you saw in the Super Bowl, what happened in the second half of the Kansas City game. I mean, they started getting picked apart, and that's you've got to be leery of that. They got a great pass rush, but you still got to be able to defend the pass with the defensive secondary.
Well, I know Avonte Maddox, who is their nickel back. He's going to be out for a while. They just announced that, so you got him out. Excuse me. They already lost. One of their safeties is already out, which is Reed Blankenship. He got hurt the first week. So you got both of those guys out. Let's see, who is he? You got your middle linebacker, Nakobe Dean. He's down and will be out for, I think they think about 4 weeks. So he's sidelined. So that's 3 guys right there.
Yeah.
And they went into the season really with question marks at the safety spot and at linebacker. And now they've been hit by the injury bug. And that's why I tell you, I don't know how they're going to do it, but they're going to have to play much better. What's he got here? Let's see. We are an impact player away at safety, just like the year before we signed Jenkins. We have good corners, but we are missing impact at safety. If we had one, this secondary would be different. Now, I agree with you. That's John Adcock. I appreciate your comments, John, because I agree with you. That they got a problem at the safety spot. They're really not doing a great job. With the deep routes, the work in the middle on these guys with the tight ends. In the game against the Vikings, I know their tight end had a pretty good game, and he scored 2 touchdowns because they get him matched up one-on-one with the safety, and they got to get a bigger guy in there. I'm sorry, I would like it if they would find a way for Bradbury to play some of these safeties. I mean, not some of the safeties, but some of the tight ends, because he's about 6'4". He's got the size. He's got good size. He's not skinny. He's probably 220 pounds at least, and he's 6'4", 6'5", and he's a good matchup for a tight end. They matched up little safety against the Vikings tight end, and he caught 2 touchdowns. And when he caught the ball, just ran over the little guy into the end zone. He cannot tackle him. And that was TJ. who's one of the better tight ends in the league. So he had a big day, but they're going to have to do something about that. But I don't know. I'd like your comment, Mike. I don't know how they match up against Tampa Bay. Be honest with you,
you got to put a linebacker on the tight end. I mean, that's
I think so.
The matchup. You got to play. Switch to that sort of nickel.
I'm gonna have to cut you off because we got to take a quick break, and then we'll hear from you on the other side. But we'll be back with you in a moment.
Royal Billiard and Recreation, proudly celebrating 40 years and our new, bigger showroom.
Twice the size and twice the fun.
More pool tables by Olhausen. More dartboard sets, including custom reclaimed backboards. More bar and kitchen stools that can change a room.
And more bars, including pre-built and custom.
Hot tubs, skee ball, shuffleboard, outdoor,
and fun.
Royal Billiard and Recreation, your ultimate game room store. Now located on Bethlehem Pike in Colmar.
Now we're back, and Mike, we were talking about the tight end, and I just want to say that when I played I was playing, and I know it was a ways back, but we jammed the tight end. We didn't just let the tight end have a free release. We'd line up on him and we jam him, and who knows? Maybe sometime we hold him. Whatever we had to do, we would delay his release, and. I look at they're down on the goal line. They got T.J. Hawkinson. They got a little DB number 30. He catches the ball and he basically grins at him and then slaps him to the ground, runs into the end zone.
Yeah,
I'm going.
You got to get a linebacker in there covering him. That's a mismatch. That's a mismatch. It's like it'd be like a linebacker covering a wide receiver.
That's right.
You got a safety covering a tight end. That's in the box. You got to put people that are in the box. And what happens if you play action pass at that? What do you run at that? Then you're totally dead in the water. You got a tight end blocking a safety. Oh my, that's you hope for that matchup. You hope.
That's
you
right.
You got to change the personnel.
That's right. Now Ken. You played on some good Eagles defenses with some smart players. You had. Some smart linebackers and safeties, the guys that were really kind of directing the defense. How important is that with the communication on a defense? How important is that? I don't know. I don't know if he's hearing me clearly, and if the timing and everything is off. It just seems like it's a bad connection. But anyway. And I'll tell you from my experience from playing a long time in the NFL, one of the number one things you got to do is you have got to be communicating as a football team. And especially on the defense in the secondary, and then a lot of times the motion, what they're going to do, but you got to communicate, and you cannot be playing passive where you're just backing up, letting them do everything. Yeah, of course, if you're a safety and stuff, you don't want to get beat deep. That's true and everything. But other guys, you got to jam the receivers. You delay their release because if you can throw off the timing a little bit, it messes up the route. It makes the quarterback hold on to the ball a little longer. If he's got pressure in his face, he's coming off that guy he was looking at. But I see the Eagles, they're going out there and, I don't want to say anything vulgar. Or anything.
Gary, a lot of that has to do with also personnel matchup, and that starts at the coaching staff. If you're sitting there and you've got dime personnel and they're showing twin tights on it's 1 yard and goal, and you've got a safety matched up on the tight end, you got to see that from the box, and you've got to know that you got to send the right personnel in there and get out of dime or nickel and get back to a linebacker covering a big man. And that's, a little bit goes now on the coaching staff.
Yeah, I agree. Some of that goes on the coaching staff. Some of these guys were young. See, a lot of they got guys out there, some of them that haven't played in the NFL very much. So some of them, as you could expect, they're very nervous. You could tell it by the fact that they're not playing aggressive, But one of the things that and this was years ago when I would line up on the tight end every play. One of the most important things I would do for the defense is I would jam the tight end and not let him release really quick. And by doing that, it throws off the timing. The quarterback comes off a guy because if he sees a guy getting jammed, he's going, look, I do not have time to wait for that guy to get off that release. Now, do you do it all the time? You don't need to do it all the time, but you do it as a changeup, especially if you move up in the last seconds and the guy's he's expecting a free release, and then at the last seconds you run up there and you jam him. You get a good jam on him, and you delay his release. And that throws off the timing. It makes the quarterback get shaky back there with the football. But one of the big things the Eagles got to do, and this is what they're going to, because this is the situation they're in, because they have some injuries, is you've got to have guys talking. Now I know how important, from you playing on the opposite side, Mike, that the quarterback coming in there, talking with confidence, being very clear about what he's calling. Everybody's making sure they leave the huddle. Everybody's on the same page. You're not over there where a guy's whispering, you don't hear what he's saying. And he's got to be talking with some confidence as a leader. And because, you're going to have some challenges where the other team gets a big play in some way. But
you're absolutely right, Garry. When you have the quarterback, you come up to the line of scrimmage, you should be the center. Well, everybody needs to be counting in the box.
That's right.
You got 6, 7, or 8 guys in the box.
Yeah.
Now you got 5 offensive line. They're going to block the most dangerous 5.
Yes.
And the center's job is to call what linebacker is a 4-man line. What linebacker is the line going to? And a lot of time the tailback or fullback could be going opposite.
Yeah.
But then the quarterback has to take into account the unblocked man and make sure he's the least dangerous man in the play. And if they got too many guys in the box, they got to get out of it.
Yes.
So that, comes to, a lot, puts a lot of pressure on the quarterback, but he's really the only one seeing the whole picture. So that goes to communication from the line call to the quarterback seeing who's what from the running game and the passing game. You got to know. And then you got hot reads. You're throwing hot up. Obviously, you don't want to let anything hot, and you got to communicate the A, B, C gap, because if the A gap, you get beat, it's a sack.
Okay.
So
a couple of these guys are talking about the Cowboys, and we'll get a chance to talk to them during the next break. Jimmy J says Cowboys have 70 points and have only given up 10. They look like the cream of the crop. Now, and we're going to talk because they do look like the cream of the crop. And the Eagles are going to have to play. They got a long ways to go before they play those guys, but they're going to have to play much better. And Mike, with just what you were talking about with offensively, it just seems like the Eagles aren't in sync. Where whatever the teams have been doing have just taken away, the RPOs where they fake it and Jalen's keeping the ball. They've taken away his running ability. Because the numerous times he has faked it, he holds on to the ball, and there are 2 or 3 guys outside of that play are outside. If he takes it on, he's got nowhere to go. So they're definitely mixing them up there. And I know that Belichick is good for doing that type of thing, But the big thing offensively just seems like, until they got into that, they started running the ball, staying with the running game. They just were not in sync. What would you tell them in that kind of situation? They eventually they started just running the ball, and that's what.
Well, yeah, you're right. I mean, the running game won the game for them last week, but you got to have balanced offense.
Yeah,
and a lot of times they 60 pass, 40 run, and that wasn't the case last week.
Yeah.
So now you get to a situation where what do you do when they shut the run down? What do you do to shut the run? Put 8 guys in the box. That running game gets shut down. Yeah. Now you got to be able to win on. Now you got to be able to throw off the wide receivers on the edge.
Yes.
Or you got to get your tight end release and start throwing the ball. You got to be able to game plan to put yourself in the best situation to succeed situationally on the field. And I think teams are starting to pick up what the Eagles are doing. They've got great film now on Jalen. They know his RPOs on how he can throw and run, and they're shutting down on the run. And I don't know if you want a quarterback like him, franchise player, going ahead and run the ball as much as he had, because
I didn't want him running the ball. I mean, I don't mind him handing the ball off to the backs, even if they change up some of their running game and give up on him running the ball as much, because in the end, it's not going to end well. Look at Cam Newton. Where's Cam Newton now? Cam Newton is somewhere not playing football.
Yeah.
Not long ago, he was MVP of the league, but because he was carrying the ball so much, you cannot have your quarterback getting pounded and expect him to stay around. That's not the way it works. So I would encourage the Eagles. I had no problem with the way they ran the ball the other day, where they ended up putting the ball and just really they were running zones and running it right at the Vikings. And if they have to limit some of the RPOs where they're not having him run with the ball as much, I think it's a good thing, because they cannot afford to get him hurt. And I would like to see them just let Jalen hand that ball off and throwing. And I don't mind them winning the way they did with the ground attack, because teams are going to try to take away their big plays, and they don't need to force it and end up turning over the ball. So, ultimately, I'll take the win.
A complete offense, being able to run the ball. Then you got to play action pass out of the plays that you run the ball well with. And then when they creep up, stop the run, short play action pass, and you got to throw deep. And that's your changeup. And that's a balanced offense. And you've got to have that in this league. You saw it with the Cowboys. They scored a lot of points. I mean, you see it with teams in there. 49ers are doing it. They're a good football team. The Eagles are going to see them in December. I mean, I already bought my tickets to the Dallas Cowboy games, man. That's a game I'm going to see, because that's going to be the game so far.
That's going to be the game.
The first weekend in November, I'll be there.
The first weekend in November, that's when they play the Cowboys, huh? First weekend of November, huh?
And they play.
Well, that's good. What's good about it is the Eagles going to have a chance to get all these wrinkles out. They're going to be able to, get their offense flowing, because they are definitely going to have a running game, because they do not want to just get in just throwing the ball and get one-dimensional against the Cowboys from the way they look at that pass rush. They want to make sure they're running the ball effectively.
Gary, you made a point earlier, that they don't look in sync.
No.
I tell you what, I can remember back in our day when playing with Buddy, we played 5 preseason games. The first preseason game, we played 1 quarter. Second preseason game, we played a half. Third preseason game, we made him play 3 quarters of the game. By the 4th or 5th game, we're playing the whole game.
Yeah.
This team offensively hadn't played football.
They did not play any football.
Preseason weren't playing. So you tell me you're not even hit anybody yet. They don't hit anybody in practice anymore. So how in the world are they supposed to have sync when they haven't broke a grape out there? You can put them eggs in between the shoulder pads, and they ain't broke an egg. So how they get in sync? They don't know.
At times I go out there to practice during the training camp, and we're out there 30 minutes, and they're saying, "Okay, wrap it up." What? Nobody hit anybody.
Nobody hit anybody.
Okay. They barely worked up a sweat, and then they get to the season, and they're going like, "Man, we're out of sync." I don't, the timing.
Exactly.
But we're going to continue on that. But we'll be back after this break. But we'll continue our conversation about the Eagles and their strange training camp.
Royal Billiard and Recreation, proudly celebrating 40 years, and our new, bigger showroom.
Twice the size and twice the fun.
More pool tables by Olhausen. More dartboard sets, including custom reclaimed backboards. More bar and kitchen stools that can change a room.
And more bars, including pre-built and custom.
Hot tubs, skee ball, shuffleboard, outdoor,
and fun.
Royal Billiard and Recreation, your ultimate game room store. Now located on Bethlehem Pike in Colmar.
Okay, G Cobb back with you, and joining me is Mike Schad, who former offensive lineman for the Eagles. And one of the things we were talking about, it was a whole training camp and everything, and how it just seems like they're just not in sync. The passing game, just not flowing. They're just not. And I would blame some of that. It's on the defenses that they're facing with Belichick and Brian Flores. But some of that is that, you know, they really didn't do a lot during training camp. You know, they were out there. Their practices are very short. And they were very proud of the fact that, you know, they didn't get anybody hurt. I'm going, how could somebody get hurt, hardly? You know, nobody's hitting anybody, and, you know, they got out, but they just definitely not happy with the way they're playing right now. And I tell you, people are talking about, you know, when they play the Cowboys and when they play the 49ers and all that, they're not going to beat Tampa Bay this week if they don't play better than they played the first two games. I'll tell you that. Tampa Bay, good football team. Baker Mayfield is playing well. He's throwing the ball well. He's got some good receivers to throw the ball to. And the Eagles are going to have trouble if they don't play better. They got to play better on on both sides of the ball. And I'm breaking the news to everybody, because everybody that's, you know, they just got to play Tampa Bay and Tom Brady's not down anymore. Look. They have got a team. They're 2-0. They have got a team that's going to beat the Eagles if they don't play better than they've been playing. That means they've got to iron out some of those wrinkles. Yes, Jalen's got to play better. The receivers have got to play better. And really the offensive coordinator and Nick Sirianni, they got to do a better job of calling a better game, because there was no flow with what they were doing. Just seemed like, Jalen was out of his timing is off, and the offensive line was, and this is, you know, they got it going with that running game, but their pass blocking was not up to where it's been in the past. So what's your take on that, Mike?
Well, you know, you're going down to Tampa Bay to play. Our memories aren't short. We went down there in the playoff game, the wild card game 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And we got schooled.
Yeah,
we got schooled by a good football team with the greatest of all time quarterback playing the game.
That's right.
In a full house, the whole America was watching.
Yep.
Now, they throwed it off and said, Jalen Hurts, you know, he's a young guy. He's just coming down. He's going to be good, but this ain't his game. And the Eagles are happy to be there. Now, the tables have turned. Yeah. The Eagles are the premier team.
Correct.
The Eagles are the big, the boy you have to beat off the block.
That's right.
They're the big man in the ring.
That's right.
So if I think I'm the Eagles, and the way I would spend this game off this weekend, we owe them something for 2 years ago. We owe them something, a payback.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds good. That sounds good. But
so
they got to play better than they did.
Towards the game, then, you know, maybe the Eagles, you know, aren't that championship team yet. You know, maybe they're a different team. They're all saying KC's a different team. They never lost a game again on the weekend. They were lucky to win in the end.
Yeah, you're right. You know, the thing that I look at with the Birds is that the way they're playing defense, I mean, they played two teams, and both quarterbacks have thrown for over 300 yards. Two teams they played. Now, Baker Mayfield has got a good arm. He's got some good receivers to throw the ball to. Why isn't he going to throw for 300 yards? I would predict that he's going to throw for 300 yards because I'm seeing young defensive backs out there who are out there and look like they're scared. Okay? What they say, if you're scared, go get a dog. All right? Because you can't play the game scared. You know, you got to be more confident. You are going to get beat sometimes.
Yeah.
But they got to loosen up and they got to start playing more aggressively. And sometimes the quarterback and the wide receiver are going to beat you, but sometimes you got to beat them, meaning you get an interception and they'll disrupt things. And that's what the Eagles need this week is they've got to get some turnovers because I think Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans and all the guys, I think that they're going to gain some yardage. I don't think they're going to run very well against the Eagles. But I think they're going to throw the ball. And you've had two teams that had success throwing the ball against the Eagles, and I don't see any reason why Tampa Bay's not going to do the same thing. But the offense, they've got to do a better job of operating the offense. And I don't know if they're going to continue with the RPOs, the run-pass option. Regardless, they've got to get that passing game going and get it in sync where they put together some drives. They haven't had very many drives where they've driven downfield and scored. It's been very sloppy. and they benefited the last game over the turnovers. And I don't know if the turnovers are going to be there this game, but they got to play better. And it's as simple as that to me. And I want to see what they're going to do, but I'm not happy with what I've seen so far. The defensive line I thought played well. In the Viking game, the Vikings weren't able to run the ball against the Eagles, but they were able to throw it. And if the secondary doesn't improve, I don't see them winning the game.
Yeah, it gets to a point where sometimes the best offense is the best defense, and maybe that attributes to taking the pressure off the defense when you got an offense running the ball and staying on the field and grinding them out, and the defense is getting a lot of rest. I mean, if that's the strategy you have to take to win a football game, it doesn't say a lot for the secondary, and it's going to get to a point where on Sunday you're going to see what's going to happen in the backfield. I'd like to see him be able to throw the ball better. You've got to have that combination offense. I'm still, Cam, I watch a line play. I'm a line guy, and I like seeing what line play. And obviously, you're really excited what's going on with the running game. But then, you look at the right guard, and, you got a 300-pound right guard playing guys that are 330, 340. And it's a much, much more difficult to get a guy moving or to hold a guy off that outweighs you by 20, 30 pounds. It's tougher to control a guy when you're lighter versus when you're bigger. When you're bigger, it sort of equalizes it. But when you're giving up 20 pounds, that's a little different. And you're going backwards. It's not a natural position. And I definitely saw on the right side different depths on pass blocking with regards to where the center was and the right guard was and the right tackle. So
you're saying the size you're talking about with the right guard. You think his size is a problem and it's going to continue to be a problem or what?
Cam's 300 pounds.
I know.
He's 300 pounds. What happens? Look at our defense with two inside guys.
Hey,
in practice.
And they got some big guys, and I know one of them. What's his name? That number 50 is that with Tampa? Tampa's got the huge guy in the middle.
Yeah. Well, I would line him over the right guard, or get him on in the gap between the center and the guard.
Yeah, Vita Vea.
Yeah,
Vita Vea, who's at least 350, and looks like he told him he's 350, and he really 380.
Yeah, and compressed.
He looked like a mountain out there.
And that's how you beat defensive lines. Offensive lines by creating seams, by pushing the guy back and creating that seam. Yeah, and that by keeping them on different levels or stagnating the line, or that's how right. you start beating the offensive line.
And they've got probably those two linebackers they have. They're as talented as anybody in the league. They got two outstanding linebackers that helped them win a Super Bowl a few years ago. I'm talking about Devin White and Levante David. I mean, they got speed. You've got speed coming off the corner in Shaquille Barrett. But without a doubt, Levante David and Devin White, they did a good job the other day, just seeing them and how they do a good job in pass coverage and playing against the run. And that's where the Eagles are really lacking. Their linebackers are not doing a good job of communicating, keeping everybody on the same page. So they got their work cut out for them, and I'd love to say that the game when they play Tampa Bay, it's a guaranteed W and everything, but it's not. And they got to play better. Hopefully they will be able to get in sync offensively and get in sync to a degree defensively. And defensively, they got to do it with a number of backups because you've got
middle linebacker. He's a free
middle linebacker's down. That's right. Yeah.
And
you've got he's down. You got
Maddox is down. Yeah.
Yeah. Maddox is down. Avonte Maddox, he's going to be out for a while. Your nickel back. One of the safeties. I don't know whether Reese is going to play or not. The Eagles' safety, Reed Blankenship. We'll see who they're going to go with. But these guys got to play better, man. It's just that simple. They got to tackle better. They got to cover better. They need tighter coverage. It's just it's ridiculous.
Well, you got to be able
every
to make
time
plays
they
and turn the ball over. Open. Yeah, we're looking. You got to turn the ball over the offense. You got takeaways. It's funny. Buddy Ryan used to always say that it's a matter of takeaways. Yeah. If you win the game, the battle of takeaways, you win the game. If you take away the ball 3 times and they only get it once, that wins games.
I will give the Eagles credit. They did get turnovers in the game against the Vikings. That's the only reason. That's the way they won the game because the Vikings were going up and down the field. Was that
the Vikings or the Eagles? Because the ball that I saw stumbled in the end zone and holding the ball out over the edge, that's a captain of the Vikings, wide receiver, making a play, wins the game with that.
That was a dumb play on his part.
I mean, my God, that would have won the game. And the other 2 fumbles that you saw, the turnover, that's the Vikings beating the Vikings, not the Eagles beating the Vikings.
That's right. Well, those turnovers are the reason the Eagles won. Now, I don't know if Tampa Bay is going to oblige them and make some of the same turnovers because they've got to play better. They got to be sharper. They got to get that passing attack going. Jalen has got to make sure to take care of the football, whether it be with his passing or he's turned the ball over twice each game. He had an interception he threw this last game. Before that, of course, that costly fumble, in the game against the Patriots, which both times, thankfully, the defense was able to find a way to get them out of it. But they've got to prove. They got to play better. Even though they're 2-0, they're an ugly 2-0. They're 2 ugly wins, which, later on in the season, if they get everything right, then it won't matter. But if they're still playing like this later on, when they're playing San Francisco and the Bills, and they got to play Kansas City and all those teams, it's going to be a bad year if they don't get the ship going in the right direction.
Yeah. Schedule gets tougher. Schedule ggets tougher.
Now, we just have a few more minutes. Going into this game, the Eagles have an offensive line that's really one of the hearts of the team. Now, they haven't blocked us well with the pass. They got things going with that running attack. What's the mindset of that offense, knowing that it's going to be they're going to play a key role in if they got to get that running game going every game in order for them to to beat some of these teams they're going to be playing.
I saw it. I've seen teams that sometimes when they're struggling throwing the ball, turn to the offense and the offensive line and run the ball. I saw it when I played with the Rams. They had 4 of the 5 guys, Pro Bowlers out there, and they had Eric Dickerson. And even when Eric Dickerson left and went to the Colts, the offensive line with the Rams, which had, Jackie Slater, had guys like Irv Pankey, had Doug Smith. There were some good offensive linemen, 4 Pro Bowls. And they really dictated what happened to the team by holding on the ball. And there was always confidence you could run the ball. If you got confidence you can run the ball, it'll help the running game.
Well, I'll tell you what, that is going to be something the Eagles are going to need. They're going to need to dominate the possession, to keep the ball away from Tampa Bay. And it's not going to be easy running the ball against that defense. Vita Vea, his huge mammoth guys sitting in there, one of those tackles. So they got to find a way to move him, and they got to deal with their speedy linebackers. So they got a challenge ahead of them, and hopefully they'll find a way to come out on top. But Mike, I want to thank you for being with me for this time for this show and contributing. I appreciate it, and look forward to hopefully we can do it again in the future. But the Birds, they got to get the W against Tampa Bay. I'm not guaranteeing it, but hopefully they'll play better than they did against the Vikings. So we'll see you next week. Go Birds.
Go Birds. Any given Sunday.